Welcome to the Evolution Partners podcast, where I talk with the world's leading thinkers, planners, and doers who are helping to build great companies in their own way. We learn how the work they're doing is creating an impact and get to know a little bit more about them and what makes them tick. This episode is brought to you by Evolution Partners, where we help leaders to confidently build enduring great companies using our proven, structured, strategic planning process that ensures you build and execute the right plan. Check us out at evolutionpartners.com.au. Also, you can check out our books, Made to Thrive, outlining how to be a great CEO, as well as Onboarded, which is about making your new hires more effective faster. Lee Salz is a thinker, planner, and doer, and one of the world's leading voices in sales differentiation. He's the best-selling author of Sales Differentiation and Sell Different, and his new book, The First Meeting Differentiator, which is already a bestseller 2 weeks after release, takes aim at the most overlooked and most important part of the sales process, the first meeting. In it, Lee flips the traditional discovery mindset and shows how to deliver meaningful value from the first conversation, not by asking more questions, but by leading more powerfully. Lee is also the founder of Sales Architects, where he helps companies design sales strategies that win more deals at higher prices. Lee, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So, really quite fascinating topic for business nerds like myself, the difference between trying to do a discovery meeting and a sales meeting that is different at the outset in the way that we're going to get into. But before we do, perhaps just tell us a little bit about how did you get into sales? How did you find yourself in this position? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, like most people in sales, I fell into it. So when I was in college, I was a full-time student and I also managed a gym. And one of the members in that gym was a banker. And they had loaned a bunch of money to these several owners that owned 4 clubs. And they said, you know what? They need you to run that. So my first job out of college, I was the executive director of a chain of health clubs. They basically handed me the keys. So you come up with the sales plan, the marketing plan, the operational plan, go. And we went gangbusters. And at the end of the first year, the largest health club chain in the world at that time recruited me to become the youngest executive in their company. And I was making $50,000 a year, 50 grand. Now, at 23, 24 years old, that's pretty good.
That's good.
Then I discovered that was top of the food chain. There was nothing north of that. So I said, okay, this fitness thing needs to be a hobby. So even today, I'm 56 years old. I still compete in powerlifting. But the sales thing is where my career needs to be. So fitness is a hobby, and I fell in love with sales, and my journey just set forth from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're here today to talk about this new book that you've got out that seems to be quite popular in the sales world. And so let's kick it off. You say that the first meeting can make or break the deal. And it's just an interesting take, I find. So what do most salespeople get wrong in that first conversation, and how can they flip the script?
Great way to start. I'm on a mission to eradicate discovery from the sales world. And a lot of people listening to this probably just raise an eyebrow and go, Lee's nuts. I'll explain. When you prepare for a discovery meeting, how do you prepare? My list of questions, my list of message points. Then I'll ask salespeople, so if I agree to take a meeting with you, what do I get out of it? And they'll say, well, you'll learn about my company. That's not meaningful value to me because I already have a provider. I already have a supplier. So why would I want to spend time with you? So let's try again. What meaningful value do I get out of this interaction? And I get a deafening silence, because that's what happens with a discovery mindset. It's an egocentric mindset because we only look at sales from our side of the desk. But if you think about the times when you've gone to the doctor, you go for 2 reasons: to become wiser about your circumstances and to understand potential remedies. If I said going to the doctor meant you were a science project, they're going to gather all this data about you and you get nothing out of it, would you ever go? Of course not. Nobody would. But if we embrace this concept of what I call the consultation mindset, I'm not going to say I created the expression, but that's what I've embraced. You recognize that there has to be meaningful value. Because the doctor doesn't call it a discovery meeting, they call it a consultation. And as soon as you recognize that first meeting has to be a consultation, you say, you know, they have to get some meaningful value out of that interaction as well. Brad, does your audience like free things?
Yes, they probably do, yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Because they struggle with this notion of meaningful value. If you write down this website, this is going to be hard to remember. Ready? meaningfulvalue.com. If you go to meaningfulvalue.com, you can download my tip sheet, 10 ways to provide meaningful value during a first meeting. Because if you don't provide meaningful value in the first meeting, guess what? There's no second meeting. That's the end. If they don't get anything out of the first meeting, they're not coming back for the second one.
So why did you may have just answered this, and I'm totally okay if you have. Why did you write the book?
Frustration, because of what we just talked about with the discovery. But there's usually two questions I get. Why did I write it? Why should people read it? And if you're smiling, because that is what you're thinking, you're going to love Chapter 5 on empathetic expertise, which dives deeply into the art of emotionally connecting with your buyers. See, countless studies have been done that say the first meeting is critical. We talk about increasing sales. The first meeting is the deal foundation. If that is weak, that first meeting is weak, the deal is weak. And so many companies I find don't have a clearly defined process and haven't specified the handling, not prescriptive in that first meeting. They say, oh, we hire salespeople and they should go have a discovery meeting, which right in itself, as I mentioned, that's problematic. So they assume they know how to properly handle that first meeting. And this isn't a modern problem. It's not a problem that's just hitting now. This was as true a century ago as it is today, that we have not laid out a framework for handling that first meeting. As a matter of fact, countless books, thousands of books have been written on the subject of how do I get a meeting? Show me the books on, okay, I got the meeting, I landed it. What's the game plan? Find it. You won't.
Yeah.
Well, you will now. It's called the first meeting differentiator. So now I'm going to confess something here. I haven't done this with any other podcast. I don't enjoy reading. Now, I didn't say I don't read. I said I don't enjoy it. I read a ton. So here's my rule. When I write a book, I won't write a book that I personally would not read. So it's lots of stories. It's written in a very conversational way, and there's workshops in it so that you can actually implement the strategies. I mean, how many books have you read where you go, okay, this was interesting. No idea how to implement the strategies, but it was interesting reading.
Yeah.
Well, there's all kinds of downloadable strategies and workshops to help you with implementation.
Let's go back to empathetic expertise, because that's one of the things that I picked up. You've coined this phrase. What does it look like in action, and how does it change the dynamic of the sales meeting?
Yeah. So there's an expression, I'm going to guess you've heard this 4 million times. You tell me if I'm right. People buy based on emotion and justify their decisions with logic. Did I get to 4 million times?
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah, that's what I figured.
Pretty close.
Okay. I'll bet the deed to my house that if we picked 100 sales calls across all industries, all around the world, 99 of that 100 meetings, if not all 100, the entire meeting was logic. Every salesperson on the planet has heard people buy based on emotion, justify the decisions with logic. Now find a salesperson that actually does it. And I struggled with that. I was like, if everyone's heard it, why don't they do it? And then I had this epiphany. I had 2 sons that played college baseball. And I remember when they were first learning the game, when they were little kids, and they'd be told, name of the game is hit home runs. And they got it, hit home runs. But guess what? Until you taught them how to hit home runs, nothing changed in their game. And that's the problem with what we're doing in sales. We're saying people buy based on emotion, justify their decisions with logic, but we haven't taught the salespeople how to appropriately engage emotions. So in Chapter 5 of my book, it's titled Emotion, the Deal Energizer, because if you aren't arousing emotion when you're selling, there's a high likelihood that the deal is going to fizzle out.
What does that look like practically then? If you could either give us an example or endeavor to role play, give us an idea of what does
Yes.
that look like when we bring that emotion to life?
Yeah. So when you look at the issues, what you sell addresses, the person that you want to meet with, they have a set of emotions. There's a way that they feel about that issue before you ever walk in the door. So tell me, how do they feel about that issue? Are they frustrated? Are they concerned? Are they worried? And why do they have that set of emotions? So that's before you walk in the door. Same issue. How do you want them to feel about that issue as the meeting's over? You're walking back to your car. And why should they now feel that way? So now we define the two emotional endpoints, how they felt about this issue before you walked in the door and the reasons for it, how you want them to feel about that issue after that interaction, and why they should now feel that way. The consultation is the bridge that connects how they felt before with how you want them to feel after. So we have to transition their emotions from how they felt before to the desired set of emotions. And the tools that we have are the questions we ask, the information we share visually and verbally, and the actions we take before, during, and after that meeting.
Okay. So you talk about creating momentum. So we've got the empathetic expertise,
Yes.
but we've got to create momentum through that meeting so that we can traverse that bridge. And you talk about consultation cliffhangers. What's a consultation cliffhanger? How does it work? And why do you think that they're so effective?
So if you think back, there was a show in the 1970s. I don't know if it was popular in Australia. It was called Dallas. Was that popular there? Okay. The famous episode, Who Shot JR, right? That was the last episode of the season. And in television, they call that a cliffhanger. And what's the purpose of the cliffhanger on television? One thing that they want to accomplish.
Yeah. I can't think about it, but they want people to
Bring
talk about it.
viewers back for the next season. So that you'll come back and keep watching. Well, consultation cliffhangers, same concept. So during that first meeting, you want to do things so that instead of you begging for another one, they say, hey, when can you come see us again? Are you familiar with the name Herman Ebbinghaus?
Yeah, Ebbinghaus curve.
The forgetting curve.
Forgetting
right?
curve. I wrote about it in my own book, yeah.
Okay, the forgetting curve. So, people forget 50% of what they learned within 24 hours and remember less than 10% a week later.
Yep.
So here's the flaw in what we're doing in a consultation. You have a 1-hour meeting. A week later, they remember 6 minutes of it. So we go in there, we tell them everything, we show them everything, and we got nothing left. So why should they continue interacting with us? And so they feel like they saw everything. You think you showed them everything, but they remember 6 minutes of it. So the idea of a consultation cliffhanger is to create interest in having that additional dialogue with you. So what I see salespeople do is, if there's samples, they bring every possible sample. They bring operations. They bring the CEO. They bring the CIO. They bring everybody. They bring the receptionist into the meeting. Anybody and everyone into that meeting, show them everything. And they go, okay, so why should they keep talking with us?
There's think we've seen everything.
Left. There's nothing left. So when you think about that consultation cliffhanger, structured in such a way that there's energy for future interactions. Because if you provide enough meaningful value in that first meeting, there'll be another one.
Awesome. And what about when you've completed the meeting, you go away, and many people would send an email, a recap email. So how do emails to recap a meeting affect deal momentum? And why do you think that most salespeople miss this opportunity?
Yeah, that's also a head scratcher. So if you come back to what we said with Herman Ebbinghaus, we're up against this 6-minute window of a 1-hour meeting. Now, this doesn't mean we're stuck with that. There are things we can do, and one of those things is to have a recap email. And it's a structured email template that says, here are the issues you shared with me, and you use the language, the terminology that they used. Here's how we can help is the second part. So it's not a soliloquy of everything that you can bring to bear. It's relative to what they're looking to accomplish. Here's what I said I'm going to do, my action items. Here's what you said you're going to do, your action items, and here's what we agreed to do next. And you write that in such a way that it can be shared with others. And why is that important? Well, in a business-to-business sale, you met with one person. We know several people are going to have to turn their keys to get this deal. So you write this in such a way that it can be shared with others so that they get just as excited about that meeting, even though they weren't there.
I'm going to pick up on something that you just said then, which was in their language or the words that they used. Why is that important? Why should people, that's a little detail, but why should people pay attention to that, do you think?
It's a big detail because my goal when someone's reading my recap email is they're smiling and nodding because they're saying, he heard me. So back to this notion of empathetic expertise, we didn't finish that conversation. There's a very simple measurement of whether or not you have empathetic expertise. 3 words, they get me. They get me. If you think about the people you do business with, particularly repetitively, one of the reasons you keep coming back to them is because they have the lowest price. No, I'm just kidding. It's because you feel they get you. They understand you. That's why you keep interacting with them. That's why you continue doing business with them. So when we think about part of what we want to convey in that recap email is that they were heard. So we want to use their terminology, exactly how they describe the issues. That's what we want them to see in that email.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. What's the difference between an inconvenience and a problem, specifically in the consultation or during the first meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And how does someone know what they're hearing, if they're hearing an inconvenience or an actual problem, do you think?
That's a great question. And it rolls up to the word pain. We've told salespeople, if you find the pain, you're well positioned to get the deal. Right? Isn't that what we tell salespeople? Countless
sure.
books, articles, blogs, videos. Find the pain, you're on your way to getting the deal.
Yeah.
And I disagree with that. It's not that it's wrong, it's incomplete counsel. Because countless deals have been lost because salespeople believe they heard pain and they're going to get the deal. Come to find out, they didn't get it. They're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Can I share with you a story?
Oh, please.
Sure. So this is a salesperson. His name is Stephen Harmon, and he sells for ABC Enterprises. And he has a consultation, his first meeting with Nicole Jameson. During that meeting, Nicole talks about all kinds of issues and frustrations with her current provider. And as she's doing this, Stephen's salivating. He's trying not to, but he is. He's salivating because this deal looks so good. I mean, all this pain he's hearing. Done deal, right? He goes home and he's sitting on his deck having a cocktail. And he goes, I've finally done it. I got the whale. I'm finally going to get that boat that I've been dreaming of. And he calls his wife, guess what, honey? I'm finally getting that whale. I'm going to get the boat. She's like, really, honey? Yeah. So the next day, Stephen goes to work, opens up the laptop, pops up the email. And there's a note from Nicole, and it says, hey, Stephen, I wanted to thank you for your time yesterday. After further thought, we've decided to stay with our current provider. I'll be back in touch if anything changes. And Stephen just stares at his email. This doesn't make any sense. I found pain, and I'm not getting the deal. And he's sitting there. He actually envisions that boat that he was going to get sinking into the ocean. What happened? And I'm sure our listeners are going, you know what? I've had deals like that. So where did Stephen and so many salespeople go wrong? They didn't take the conversation deep enough to determine if the pain they heard was an inconvenience or a problem. An inconvenience is a nuisance. We complain about it. We talk about it, but we don't do anything about it until it elevates to the level of a problem. And then and only then are we willing to take action on it. And a way to remember that is I actually turned the word pain into an acronym. P, problem, A, action. If it's a problem, they're going to do something about it. I, inconvenience, N, neutral. Come back 10 years from now. If it's still an inconvenience, they will have done nothing. Nothing.
So how do you know in the meeting if you're dealing with an inconvenience or a problem?
Questions. Questions. And I talk about this in the first meeting differentiator. Two types of questions, horizontal questions and vertical questions. And you can kind of visualize the differences as I walk you through it. A horizontal question is a topical question. It gives you a piece of information, a data point, if you will. What's the biggest challenge you face in your business? And you say, cash flow. Then you write down cash flow. What so many salespeople do is they move on to the next horizontal question instead of setting up camp right there with that little data point and ask vertical questions and go deep and get a complete picture of that piece of information that's been shared. And when you ask vertical questions, it becomes apparent if what you've heard is an inconvenience or a problem. You mentioned cash flow. How long has cash flow been an issue? How is that impacting you personally? How is it impacting your business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
Those questions, again, you can visualize. That's why I call them vertical questions. You're going deep to get the complete picture of that piece of information that's been shared with you.
Awesome. I'm quite interested in price sensitivity, and it's something that in the work that we do, we see quite often. If it's time to raise the price, certainly there may be some pushback from the sales department or sales leaders because, to be fair, they've got to go out and fight the battles. How do you coach founders or sales leaders that say our industry is just too price sensitive? And what do you think that they're usually missing?
I agree with them. Everybody is price sensitive. I don't know anyone that would pay 1 penny more for something they perceive as the same as something else. I mean, would you? No. So the responsibility is on our shoulders to differentiate in a meaningful way. And I keep coming back to the word meaningful. It can't be differentiation for the sake of differentiation. Meaning, I could have come in here today to our interview wearing my wife's beach hat and a tutu. That would have been different. I bet you've never had a guest do that.
No, I have not.
But would that be meaningful to our listeners? No. So it can't be different for the sake of different, meaningfully different. And we have to differentiate what we sell and how we sell in a meaningful way to support the price point. See, I believe there's no such thing as a price objection. It's constructive criticism. You have two sides of a scale. You have the price on one side and meaningful value on the other. When you get pushback on price, they're giving you constructive criticism and saying, the value you've demonstrated is not at a meaningful enough level to support the price you put in front of me. That's all it is. It's not an objection. It's because we get very defensive whenever they push back on price. They're giving me an objection. They're giving you constructive criticism. And if you're hearing that enough, it means you need to go retool what you're doing to provide enough meaningful value to support the price you're putting in front of them.
Yeah, that's good. So you got to do the work is what I'm hearing.
Got to do the work.
Yeah. I want to ask about the competition, and we all experience competition. Often in sales, the competition is, whilst they're not in the room, certainly their presence can be felt, let's just say, especially if you've got some decent competition. So I think that what you've said before is most people don't know their real toughest competitor. Who is it? Who is it? And how should that insight reshape a sales strategy?
I love asking that question during keynotes. I'll say, who's your toughest competitor? And 3 players in their space will roll off their tongues. I say, oh, those are tough competitors, I'm sure. But there's one even tougher. And then someone in the audience will get all snarky and they'll go, I know what he means, that old sales trainer one, the status quo, the choice to do nothing. Also a tough competitor, but there's one even tougher. And someone will go, wait a minute, I think I know what he means. Me! If I don't have my head straight, if I don't have the right mindset, I can get in my own way and I can be my toughest competitor. Now, it's true. If you don't have the right mindset, you can get in your own way. But there's still one competitor that's tougher, more formidable than any of these. And I've never had anyone in any audience, unless they've read my books, name that competitor. That competitor is every salesperson calling on the same person you are trying to get a meeting. See, we're egocentric when we think about the competition. We only see it from our side of the desk, just like the issue with discovery. Let's flip it to their side. You're a head of human resources. You're getting calls and emails from salespeople representing your entire purview of responsibilities and beyond. Each one of them is really selling the same thing, a meeting. Now, I'm going to give you a little sales fact that a lot of people don't know. in the entire history of business, there has never been an executive hired for the sole purpose, the sole reason of meeting with salespeople every hour on the hour. It's never happened. It's never going to happen. So we're an interruption in their day. There's no executive staring at their phone going, oh my gosh, I hope a salesperson calls me right now. So you're not competing against a few players in your space. You're competing against hundreds, maybe even thousands of salespeople trying to get the attention of the same person that you are. So if you aren't differentiating yourself in your outreach, you're never getting in the door. You could have the best solution in the world, the best product, the best service, the best technology. But if you can't get in the door, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So if the sales meeting is the differentiator, or pardon me, the first sales meeting, and you're endeavoring to work on that and not the product in this philosophy, how do you systemize that first sales meeting differentiator across a sales team?
Yeah. So there's several things. The first thing is we identify an individual we normally meet with for a consultation. I call that person a decision influencer. And we reverse engineer the meeting. Imagine the meeting is over. It was a great meeting, a great consultation if we accomplished what? Let's define what success is. We learned this information. We positioned this differentiator. We provided meaningful value, etc., etc. So now you have a portfolio of outcomes. And there's a chapter in the first meeting differentiator in how to do this. Plus, there's a downloadable document in the book to help you put this into practice in your sales organization. But you identify the outcomes and think in terms of a matrix. In the left-hand column, here's all the outcomes that would make for a great consultation. Across the rows, how do we achieve it? What are we going to ask? What are we going to say? What are we going to show? What are we going to do to achieve each of these outcomes? So some of it's a function of pre-meeting research, some homework that we have to do to achieve that outcome. Maybe it's a question we ask. Maybe it's something we show them. Maybe it's something we say to them. Maybe it's something that we send them ahead of time. Maybe it's something we email them afterwards. But the idea is we have to first identify what success is by listing these outcomes, the criteria for a successful consultation, and then we construct the game plan to achieve it.
And that constructed set of outcomes is predominantly about the first meeting or about the sales meeting sequence?
This is the first meeting specifically.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And where do you think when people first come across your concept, salespeople, where do you think they get stuck or are unsure? What's the biggest hurdle you find that they're experiencing?
Well, again, if you have that discovery mindset, how do you plan for the first meeting? Let me make a list of my questions and the message points I'm going to convey. Well, there's an infinite number of questions you can ask and only so many that someone's going to tolerate. You could talk about your company for 16 hours, but no one is granting you a 16-hour meeting. I don't think you'd want one anyway.
Yeah.
Now, if we take this approach and define success first, now it's like a project plan. What questions are we going to ask? Only the ones tied to the outcomes we've identified.
Yeah.
What information are we going to share? Only the ones tied to the outcomes we've identified. What actions are we going to take? Only the ones tied to the outcomes that we've identified.
Okay. Awesome. What does a better business look like for you and most of the people that you deal with? How would you describe a better business?
And this is controversial.
Awesome.
It's going to sound very odd and awkward. But your company, your sales organization needs to be process-based, not people-based. I say, like your salespeople, love your process. Salespeople are going to come and go. And if you can find a company that is considered a sales powerhouse, that lets their salespeople wake up in the morning and say, oh, you go figure out how you want to sell for us. You find a sales powerhouse that lets their salespeople do that, I'll quit right now. Nobody does that. They define the framework, they define the process, they define the systems, they define the steps, and the sales organization follows that. The way I help executives recognize that, I'll say, if you hire 10 people to manufacture your widget, would you let them do it any way they want? I say, of course not. That's ridiculous. Why not? Well, we couldn't scale. We have quality issues, etc., etc. Then why are you doing that in your sales organization? Good question.
I don't think that's controversial at all. I think that's quite sensible. So that's fantastic. What is a book that you would recommend for our audience that isn't your book or my book?
Book by Larry Levine, Selling from the Heart.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, we look at sales today, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and we look at it 100 years from now. There is one thing that will not change in the sales world: the importance of personalization and making people feel special.
Yeah.
So many salespeople have heard the expression that sales is nothing but a numbers game. And if you subscribe to that, you treat people like a number, and no one wants to feel that.
I had Larry on the podcast. He's a
Did you?
wonderful. I did. He's a wonderful person.
He is.
How
He
can
is.
people learn more about you and your business?
My website is Sales Architects, that's plural, architects.com, salesarchitects.com. And
Awesome.
they can learn more about the book. There's a book website, which is firstmeetingbook.com. You can download the first chapter. Also, there's book bonuses there. So when you purchase the book, make sure you go to that page and take advantage of the bonuses that we're offering.
And what's the assessment? There's a sales team assessment that we spoke about off air.
Yeah.
What's the
Yep.
URL for that, please?
Yes, it's assessmysales.com. So this is not a traditional assessment that you're accustomed to. Most assessments you've seen answer the question, can the salesperson sell? That's not what this does. This is a sales organization maturity assessment. It answers a totally different question. Have we built the sales organization framework that can produce the results we want? And here's the best part. It's free. If you go to assessmysales.com, it'll take you about 10, 15 minutes to complete it. And then you'll get a comprehensive report in your email that says, here's what you've got, and here's how to elevate the maturity of your sales organization.
Thank you. What haven't we covered off that you wanted to cover off today?
Something that you haven't asked me about is another aspect of discovery that I'm going after. We told salespeople, features and benefits. You got to come in and talk features and benefits, right?
Yeah.
The chapter in my book is called Features, Benefits, and Boredom. Features and benefits is what you talk about if you want to put people to sleep. We talked about Herman Ebbinghaus earlier. How do you get people to remember stories? People remember stories. They remember facts enveloped in stories. And so one of the things that salespeople have to master is not talking about the features and benefits of what they offer, but sharing stories that are relatable, that are emotive, meaning we're engaging emotion when you tell them so that they are memorable, they're embraced, and lead to action.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Lee, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your wisdom. I think, it's a niche but fascinating topic, and it has so much downstream positive impact, not only on the salesperson or the sales team, but the business owner as well. So, Lee, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. If you'd be kind enough to leave a review for the podcast, that'd be really helpful to other like-minded entrepreneurs, and then we can grow our community. If you want to find out more about our guests, head over to evolutionpartners.com.au/podcast, where you can find show notes and other additional reading. Hope to see you back next week. Until then, keep thriving.